What was the most memorable thing your class clown ever did? Found a way to change the scrolling marquee screensaver's text across the network. I have no idea how he did it, but he managed to change the screensavers across the whole school to say "my balls are huge," which is a great start to the story. Apparently one of the librarians saw the entire library bank of computers scrolling this and fainted. Investigations ensued, and he was caught because he hadn't bothered to cover his tracks or anything. He got pulled into the office. Him, his dad, the vice principal, and the traumatized librarian, and a fortunately open door to the rest of the office. Hence us knowing this story. There was a long tirade about the consequences of his actions, the distress he had caused the poor librarian, etc. Finally, at the end of it all, he was asked if he had anything to say for himself. And he did. "I was referring to my basketballs." Straight face. The vice principal and his father both actually laughed. The librarian was enraged and promptly told to calm herself down by a still snickering vice principal. He copped a whopping single day of suspension, during which his father took him out for lunch. Built a functioning bong in art class during our clay unit. While the teacher admired his craftsmanship, he had to report it and couldn't let the guy take it home. We had a substitute for like 3 days in wood shop when I was in GR 8. Like half the guys in the class made pipes. The sub let them work on them until the last day. Then he confiscated them all. Nobody got in trouble though. He was definitely a chill dude who saw the humor in the situation. In science class we had hot plates to heat up experiments. I kid you not, this kid started making a grilled cheese on the hot plate. The teacher was like, "What's that noise smell?" She looks over to see this kid flipping his grilled cheese on the hot plate. It was sizzling and everything. She tells him to go to the dean's office, so he stands up, takes a bite out of his sandwich and walks out. Hey, don't do this kids unless you have a sanitary medium between the hot plate and the grilled cheese. Don't trust anyone in your chem class. In 7th grade we had a class rabbit. Our teacher fed it Welch's fruit snacks and we would always beg her to give us some, but they were strictly for the class rabbit. Well, this one kid who was always joking and playing pranks and doing weird crap stole all of the fruit snacks when the teacher left the room for a few minutes. He literally ate all of them, maybe like 20 packs. He hid the wrappers in his backpack or something. When the teacher came back she was so livid and didn't believe us that he did it all alone. And so we all got punished. He gave 0 fricks. He seriously looked pleased as pie and the rest of us were pee we didn't get any fruit snacks. In 5th grade, he caught a cricket on the playground, then brought it to class, yelled for everyone to look at him, and then ate it. Dressed up like the girl he hated for Halloween, complete with wig and glasses and his sister's school uniform. School called his parents to pick him up halfway through the day. When I was a kid I thought schools had to prove you are doing something wrong. Like you'd be brought before a court or something. No, they can punish you for whatever. I don't even remember who actually did it, but that is beside the point. Private Catholic high school, I believe it was freshman year. One of the guys on the football team was in a class where you had to take care of one of those fake babies that cried and could electronically track any parental missteps. Guy leaves the baby in the locker room during practice. Obviously a smart call. A few members of the team decide to kidnap the baby. I believe there was a ransom note. The next day, the baby was found hanging from a cross on the wall in the locker room. They crucified the fake baby in a private Catholic school. Everybody laughed like a bastard. This was my friend's school, but this kid came to school dressed as the Flash and just ran around campus and through classrooms all day. Administrators were trying to catch him and after a security guard chased him down in the lunch courtyard he got sent to the principal's office. As he was going into the office the kid who was leaving turned to the principal and said, "Dude, you can't punish the Flash." The principal must have agreed because he didn't get in any trouble. My scenario also happened at a friend's school. I live in the south, and apparently some redneck rolled up to school in a semi. Principal came out pee and told the kid to go the frick home and come back to school with a normal car. I remember in my 8th grade English class, there was this one kid who had a really bad stutter, like really bad. Turns out he didn't even have a stutter at all. He just started it as a joke and went with it for every one of his classes the entire year. Only the teachers thought he had a stutter but all the students knew. We all kept it a secret. Sorta related. My mate managed to convince an entire class that his dad was an illegal immigrant from Mexico, and some teachers believed him too. At the end of the year he told the class, but not the teachers. The teachers believed him till like halfway through second year when they were talking to another teacher who knew his dad. His dad is a local doctor. Also, this isn't the UK. This is pretty tame, probably because it happened in the early 90s. We had a teacher, Mr. A, who was very strict, very serious, very high regard for himself, very Italian. This man rocked the thickest mustache I had ever seen. Nothing fancy, no handlebars or waxed works of art, just a full, glorious stache that Burt Reynolds would envy. We had been working with fun fur, thick and bushy fur, for an art project. Another kid and I jokingly made faux mustaches out of it and used double-sided tape to wear them. The art teacher, who was young and new to the profession, kinda sorta dared us to wear them to Mr. A's class. We went one step further. We made mustaches for everyone. Mr. A typically strode into the classroom with disregard for all of us until he had written whatever was important for that day on the board. Somehow a class full of dumbass 9th graders managed to keep our heads down and not laugh. We waited for that moment when he turned to face us. It could not have been more perfect. The absolute stunned look on his face, followed by the loudest, not laugh, but straight out guffaw. He loved it and insisted we keep them on for the whole class. I'm sure everyone has something funnier, wilder, grosser, whatever, but almost 20 years later and that moment is still clear as day in my memory. Farted louder than I've ever heard in my life. I'm talking wall shaking, stomach rupturing, ripped open butthole loud. Wouldn't have been that big of a deal if he hadn't done it during the middle of our math final. Then as everyone turned to look his way, I just happened to be the unlucky son of a bee sitting behind him. He pointed directly at me. Cue laughter from the entire hall of students and our solemn and usually grim teacher. He may have been the one laughing the hardest if my memory serves me right. Sucker got me good. We're still best friends today. Jizzed in his sandwich because a senior kept taking his lunch every day, so he voluntarily gave it up after going to the bathroom to rub one out into the sandwich. Yep, said senior ate every bite and then we told him. I swear I've had this before. Threw 2 dictionaries by the class window from the 4th floor. The dictionaries fell about 2 feet from the principal, who was casually walking outside. Principal proceeds to get inside, climb to the 4th floor, enter the classroom with both books in hand and asks who did this. He says, I know it's someone from this class and no one is leaving until I know who is responsible. By that time it was lunchtime. After a long silence the guy finally says, okay, I admit, I threw one of them. Principal goes, I appreciate your honesty. Thanks for giving yourself away. You can leave for dinner, but don't start again. So the kid got to leave while the rest of the class had to stay until we could find who threw the second book. Guy had thrown both obviously. We tried to say he threw both, but principal was like, stop trying to put that on the back of your friend who was honest. We were stuck there for like half an hour until they realized this was going nowhere. Why is it dinner time? In our 8th grade science classroom, he pulled the emergency shower and flooded the classroom. Only got 1 day of lunch detention for it. Dang, that's a light punishment. I'm pretty sure if you pull that at the high school I went to you were immediately expelled. I got sent to the principal's office with 8 random kids once during lunch for detention. Ticking clock in the background and silence as we sat in a circle. The principal was intimidating and would announce each student's full name, asking them what they did wrong, then giving them additional punishments based on what they did. He gets to one kid and announces Alexander Burger. Some smartest kid chimes in out of nowhere with a small fries and a large Coke, thanks mate. It wasn't the most insane class clown thing I've seen, but we all burst out laughing. I've never been in a situation since that went from being so insanely tense to relaxed and funny with such a swing. Our math teacher was away one class and we got stuck with a substitute teacher from heck. He comes back the next day and tells us that he was at a riddle competition. Yes, a riddle competition. The class was pretty pee about having that substitute teacher, and our teacher starts bragging about winning first place and how he can solve any riddle. So naturally, our class clown gets up and drops this riddle. You are a bus driver. There are 10 passengers. On the first stop 3 people get on. 5 get off. On the second stop 2 people get on. 3 get off. On the final stop 8 people get on. 4 get off. What color are the bus driver's eyes? Our teacher tries to be smart and answers that information was not provided, to which our clown replies, yes it was, dumbass. You are the bus driver. He got suspended. Well, he wasn't wrong. Most memorable to me was when he took the blame for throwing a rubber at S teacher and knocking her toupee off. I didn't do it on purpose. I have a terrible aim and it happened so quick. She's going up a shit asking who did it, and he calmly stands up and says, it was me, but keep your hair on. It was an accident. I was aiming for your glasses. I'm assuming you're British, but this is a lot more entertaining imaging a condom instead of an eraser. This one time in band camp he stole some kids' blue juice, valve oil for instruments, and chugged about a quarter of the bottle purely to pee him off. He got really sick after an hour or so and we didn't see him again until a week later. Trombones also use another thing that we call magic jizz and it makes slides great and looks like CM. My friend took this kid's jizz bottle and emptied it all over his instrument and bag. And the bottles are relatively expensive and it leaves this oily residue everywhere. His trombone and backpack were slick to the touch for the rest of the season. During a class presentation he had his assistants turn off the lights. He then put a flashlight under his head so only his face was illuminated. He started saying things like prepare to be amazed, science rules, and welcome to a world of wonder. He then paused and said please observe what I do with this applesauce. The lights turned back on and he poured an entire jar of applesauce down his pants. This was a high school biology class. The teacher was in shock and I don't think I'll ever laugh that hard again. Just pure craziness. This is so weird, I love it. I was in 7th grade Spanish class. The class clown in this scenario was a short, overweight boy named AJ, real name. He and our teacher were never really on good terms, him being the class clown and hungry for attention. One day when she was turned around writing something on the board he tried to climb out the window. Our class was on the 1st floor. He was halfway out the window when she turned around and lost her crap. Man, I loved public school. Pulled a pipe and some herb out and took a hit right in the middle of math class without the teacher finding out. The teacher didn't know what the smell was or where the smoke came from or who even did it, so she just pretty much got mad at everybody for not paying attention and got back to teaching. She was completely oblivious. She obviously had never smelled herb before in her entire life. My senior year, we had a teacher wandering from classroom to classroom trying to find the dead skunk. She eventually gave up and went back to teaching her class. There was no skunk, just the art teachers enjoying their break period. In my senior year economics class our teacher was a 70-year-old woman that had been teaching at the school for at least 40 years. We would frick with her constantly. One day the window was open and I was in the seat right next to it. Another guy in the class gives me a tennis ball and tells me to throw it at him when Dr. Apt was not looking. I had no clue what he was going to do, but I agreed. When she turned her back to me but could still probably see him out of the corner of her eye, I tossed the ball with some force but not much and it hit him in the face. He then proceeded to scream in agony and fall over, bringing his whole desk down with him in an extremely slapstick manner. She ran over to him and asked him what happened and he said someone pelted the ball at him from out the window while still writhing in pain on the ground. She ran over to the window and spotted 3 kids in the courtyard outside the classroom and called them over so she could yell at them. But none of them knew what was going on at all and denied it. She told them if none of them would fess up she would call the principal and they would all be in trouble. They all remained confused and stood their ground. She ended up calling the principal and he took them to his office. I don't know if they ever got in trouble though. Teacher had his lunchbox on his desk. This guy stripped down to his boxers and crawled underneath all the tables from the back of the class to the front and stole his lunchbox. Started eating his food underneath the table. The teacher caught on to what was happening, looks under the table and just says, "What the frick are you doing?" The look on the kid's face as he was caught with a banana in his mouth was just priceless. I would not even know where to begin in elementary school. I had a class full of clowns, so I will skip to high school. We had a substitute teacher in Spanish one day, the new assistant pay coach. My friend gets my attention and asks me to hand him one of the erasers from the chalkboard. I pass it over. He sticks it down the front of his jeans and positions it to stick out lengthwise. My friend is 6 feet 9 inches, just massive, and he now looks like he has a raging, rectangular erection. He walks up to the sub's desk, slaps it down on the table right in front of him and says, "Can I go to the bathroom?" The look of shock and horror on the teacher's face was priceless. His eyes were focused on his pants the whole time and he mumbled, Why? Yes. I was in the floor, under my desk, having convulsion as my friend walked out looking as proud as a peacock. The whole class was in tears. I love you for the story. Also 6 feet 9 inches like the Undertaker. Boner man walking. So, aside from typical smile-inducing things like interrupting teacher, standing up saying how immature he behaved and apologizing before doing it again a moment later, one thing really stands out. I don't know if it was the Pirates of Caribbean reruns that caused it or if the guy was Jack Sparrow deep down, but here goes. So on our pain pool, we had that rule that anyone who's not swimming today has to sit on a bench with no socks due to hygienic reasons. Well, Mr. Pirate doesn't seem so fond of that idea, so he just goes in with his boots and crap. After participating piece of class got ready for swimming, we all proceed to pool hall. Immediately he gets asked by our quite awkward young teacher to take off his socks, to which he, as you guessed, declines. He was a well-established school clown, mind you, so as soon as answered the teacher goes to get him from one side and the lifeguard came from other. At this moment he proceeds to take out his phone, key, and also takes off his boots and hands it to nearest person saying take care of it. He then jumps fully clothed into pool, swims like a madman to the other side while both caretakers watch and all to the sides. He gets out of the pool, and shoeless and wet sprints out of school. I'm still amazed at the dedication to not get socks off when told to. I hope they remember that as the day they nearly caught Captain Jack Sparrow. In physics class we were watching the teacher write some formulas on the board when she drops her pen. While she was bent over he exclaims M's blank, I'm looking at your butt. She stood straight up and rigid. I should send you to the office for that. She never did. A friend of mine once decided it was a good idea to sled down the stairs of his house in a cardboard box. The next day, he came in with a cast on his broken arm. I'm sure we all had a lot of fun signing it about how stupid and awesome the injury was. 20 years later, he is a rising actor in Hollywood. He was featured in a Super Bowl commercial, had a speaking part on the show The Middle, and recently had a pretty good speaking part on Shameless, among other things. I guess the joke is on us. He was preparing for comedy at a young age. He's a great guy too. What's the dude's name? The class clown was one of my good friends, and for his birthday I got him a hot pink bra and a white shake weight. I gave him his present in Latin class, where this super short sweet nun was our teacher. He wore the bra outside of his shirt and played with the shake weight all class. Another Latin story. Once it started raining in the middle of class and he reached down in his book bag, grabbed his umbrella, and opened it in the middle of class and held it above his head. When the nun asked him what he was doing, all he said was it's raining. A third Latin story. So another time our teacher was late and he wanted to surprise her. There was this small door to where I believe a water heater was supposed to be, or maybe it was a small storage room. Either way it was empty and above the air filter. So he climbed up into the small room and waited for her to show up. However, the nun was sick that day and our sub was the very frightening office receptionist. When she walked in we all started giggling because we knew he was fricked. Lucky for him she left and he immediately climbed out, and right as he was closing the door, the other nun walked in and just stared at him for a bit. We're all still laughing and she said I don't wanna know, and we all went on with our days. Another time he fit himself into a gym bag and we zipped it up and he started rolling around the room. It was pretty great. I love that kid. Middle of clash. Read the rest of the story in Sean Connery's voice. Yesh. Kid in our English class named Eric walked in one day, went straight to the fish tank in the back, pulled a fish and placed it in his wallet, asked to use the restroom right as class started, let the fish loose in the toilet, 30 minutes later asked to use the restroom again, and retrieved the fish. When he placed it back in the tank, the look on the teacher's face still causes me to laugh uncontrollably 8 years later. I was in the 8th grade, and the class clown was a kid named AJ. AJ sat right next to the radiator in language arts, and he would screw around with it all the time, dropping paper clips in, turning it on and off, etc. The teacher, Mrs. V, was at her desk trying to open up a package of dry erase markers and having a tough go of it. AJ gets his index finger stuck in the grill of the radiator and after failing to get it unstuck, announces calmly to the table that he can't get his fingers out of the grate. We all laugh and call him stupid, thinking he is joking. Mrs. V asks immediately after AJ finishes speaking, has anyone seen the scissors? The look of sheer panic on AJ's face for a solid 3 or 4 seconds before he realized that she meant to open the package and not cut his fingers off were fantastic. That will always be my favorite memory of the 1 year I spent in that shithole school. Also, one time Mrs. V walked in on AJ, a slightly tubby kid, straddling a desk and making walrus noises while he flopped his arms around and clapped. She just shook her head and sat down. We also had to perform a dance routine for gym class, and AJ perfectly choreographed and executed Work It with his best friend to a standing ovation from 150 plus fellow 8th graders, complete with his best friend pulling AJ by his feet across the stage. I will never forget the sound of AJ's stomach screeching across the waxed floors. The sound of his stomach screeching. I can't right now. I was interviewing a CDL driver candidate and this is how he explained his arrest for domestic violence. You know how Cherokee Indians get. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.